Previously, Tornak threatened the other ship in deep speech. In the aftermath, a winged woman named Drusalla came out from below deck and told Tornak there was no reason for him to be difficult. She threatened the group, saying they would go to the Shadow World at some point, but there was no reason for them to go just then. All Tornak had to do was leave with her. Below decks, Taria and Oz could tell that Tornak's body was starting to decay rapidly. Oz rushed up on deck to announce that Tornak wasn't leaving with them, a definite threat in his voice and body language, which clearly made both of Drusalla's minions back down somewhat. Seeing that, she offered to simply take Dornak's dead body as a down payment, which Keelan knew wasn't a good idea either. They decided to try some lying, and Keelan wrapped Saba up in a sheet below deck and made the otter pretend to be Tornak's body. The ruse didn't last long, but it at least gave them a chance to start the fight on their own terms. Drusalla threw up an area of magical darkness around the ship, covering everyone but Oz. Zaya was knocked unconscious and fell into the water, but Oz was able to get her back on deck. Sean was attacked by Drusalla, and her right arm was cut off near the shoulder during the altercation. Both of the minions made their way over to the ship to try to get Tornak's body, while Drusalla focused on Tornak himself. Taria used Misty Step to get on board the other ship, while Keelan swam over. She then uncorked the bottle and said karma, which made the group ship shrink again. Since Zaya was unconscious, she couldn't do anything to get off the ship, so Sean stayed behind as well. The two minions weren't able to escape, but Drusalla flew upwards. On the ship, the two minions started frantically attacking the bottle in an attempt to break through the glass. Sean healed Zaya with her last low-level spell slot. Outside, the remaining members of the group focused on Drusalla. She tried to cast Banishment on Tornak, but he resisted. Taria was able to do an approximate shit ton of damage against her, even transferring the damage from one of the minions' attacks against the bottle to Drusalla instead. Then Oz finished her off. Drusalla's body melted into the water, and Taria hurriedly gathered her items. Those in the water climbed back onto the smaller ship, and Taria brought their ship out of the bottle. Tornak managed to cast Hold Person on one of the cultists, who Saba then promptly drowned per orders from Keelan. Taria and Zaya slipped off to look for items hidden below decks, and Taria also managed to grab Sean's severed arm during that time. More on that later. They then tried to get information from the other cultist, but he didn't want to talk, so they decided to wait until the next day to try to rip the details from his head. Taria and Oz talked a bit about the items that Taria had found, and while she left most of them with him, she took a tablet for Contact Other Plane, and possibly some gauntlets. Then she locked herself in her quarters and magically barred the door. As you do. Sean and Zaya had a quiet talk before turning in for the night. On deck, the cultist started talking with Keelan once he was the only one there. He made it clear that anyone who'd taken in the energy from the sigils would be theirs. The cultist answered a lot of questions without actually answering anything. The next morning, Keelan went down to wake up Taria and found out that she'd put on the gauntlets. He went to tell the others, and they all gathered in her room. Zaya pushed her way into Taria's mind, where she saw her having a nightmare where Zaya betrayed the group. Lots of yelling and screaming happened when Taria woke up, and a disappointed Keelan left. Tornak ended up casting Hold Person on Taria, with Zaya blocking her from using Misty Step multiple times, before Sean used Remove Curse. As soon as the attunement was broken, Taria pulled off the gauntlets and rushed out of the room. Sean followed while the others headed up on deck, as they realized Keelan had taken the other ship and left with the cultist prisoner. Sean and Taria had a quiet talk in Taria's workshop before they rejoined everyone on deck. Taria let them look in the bag of holding, where the reveal that she'd stolen Sean's severed arm came out. She wanted to try to find a way for Sean to get it back, which Sean was very skeptical about, because once people saw her without an arm, she couldn't show back up with one. People would notice, and it would make things even worse for her family. After a few hours, the group came across the cultists floating on some ice in the middle of the river. Keelan had clearly left him in their path. There was a note attached to him explaining that Keelan had found out so far and telling the group that they would need to try to verify it. They pulled him up on deck, and Zaya prepared to read his mind. And that is where we left off.